I expect this out of Heidi because that ecclesia reading time takes about 15 or 20 minutes. So that's what she's used to. Welcome, everyone. This week, let me take half a step back here. Last week, Catherine talked about Genesis, and she covered verses 1, 2, and 3. Chapters 1, just verses 1, 2, and 3. No, chapters 1, 2, and 3, sorry. What we found from her message is that in Genesis 1 and 2, God created. God created and everything was good. And this is how He intended things to be. When God created the earth, He intended everything to be good. And He did it. He made it. Everything was good. That is what they call shalom. Shalom is peace, completeness, prosperity, welfare. Everything was perfect. Everything was the way it should be. And then Catherine got into the disruption of shalom. Start in Genesis 3. Sin enters the picture. Now, I've been told before, I've said this before, I will probably say it again. If you take the Bible and take sin out of the Bible, you've got a pamphlet. It's Genesis 1 and 2, Revelation 21 and 22. Everything else involves sin. But again, sin is the disruption of shalom. So we find Adam and Eve exercising their free will that God gave them and bringing disruption to the shalom that God intended. Rather than God putting an immediate end to the disruption, He allows for free will to continue and puts a plan of salvation in place. And that Catherine covered last week, and we're going to, this week, pick up where she left off. So if we can first open in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank You for this beautiful day. Thank You that we can gather here together as Your people. And Lord, the beautiful thing is that some of us are here with praises and rejoicement and just we can't wait to be here and spend time with You. And Lord, I'm sure some people had to drag themselves in with every last bit of their being. Lord, the one thing I have learned about You is that You will meet each of us where we are at. So Lord, as we get into this message, I just pray that the words that You give me are Your words and not my words. That everything that You do not intend just falls away and becomes nothing. And that each of the words that You've given me fall on each of our hearts in their own way. Lord, I thank You for this opportunity to be able to give Your word. Again, I thank You for the wonderful people that You have here. In Your holy name we pray. So, now moving forward into Genesis, and throughout the rest of the Bible, we find sin is a disruption of shalom. It is not what God intended. The Bible is not about the removal of sin, but it's about the restoration of shalom, which is peace. If we look at reading our Bible in the aspect of this is God trying to put things back the way they're supposed to be, yes, it is full of sin. But the beautiful thing about it is, as I go through the Bible and story after story where people are messing up, God always seems to have a plan in place and things all of a sudden become right. And it continues throughout history. And I'm telling you what, if that's not a God of love, I don't know what is. Now, the removal of sin is central to restoring shalom. But again, the removal of sin isn't what the Bible is about. The restoration of shalom is what it's about. God will always meet us where we are at, and He will always take us back no matter what. And I've run into a number of people that I've talked to that when I get talking about about Christ and about what God's done for me. You know something? Yeah, I haven't been to church in years, because if you knew my life, there is no way. A good friend of mine and Heidi's, he said that the day I walked back into church, I was just hoping you guys had good insurance, because I knew lightning would hit the building. And he has since found out that, you know something? No, glory has hit the building. When he walked back into church, God did some amazing things. It took time. It wasn't immediate. It wasn't like he walked into church and all of a sudden everything changed and everything's happy and the birds were singing and it turned into a Disney movie. But it took time. So we will find that as we continue to go through, step through all of this. So throughout the Bible, we find us humans disrupting shalom. We find ourselves sinning. We also find God constantly needing to correct our disruptive behavior, knowing we can't do this ourselves. If we try to take on healing the disruption of shalom by ourselves, it can't work. We need God. So, that being said, again, Catherine left off. We had Genesis 1, 2, and 3. Genesis 4, we find Cain and Abel. This is the story of Adam. The story of Adam and Eve is about individual sin. The sins they committed were self-focused, self-centered. Moving forward into Genesis, we pick up Genesis 4 and the story of Cain and Abel, where we find yet another example of self-centered sin. Cain and Abel are two of Adam and Eve's sons. The Bible says that Cain worked the soil and Abel kept flocks. They both made offerings to the Lord from what they were entrusted to take care of. When Cain finds that God is more receptive to his brother Abel's offering of the firstborn fattened animals of his flock than his own offering of some of his fruit, the way my translation read, Cain becomes jealous and kills his brother. So you've got Cain and Abel, again, two of Adam and Eve's sons. You've got Cain, he's growing plants, he's a gardener. You've got Abel, he's a shepherd, he's got the flocks and stuff. They're giving offerings to God. Abel takes the firstborn, the fattest, the best, gives that to God. Like I said, the Bible, at least my translation, says that Cain took some of his fruit. Didn't take the best, didn't take the first. He took some of it. And it didn't say that God did not like his offering, but he was more pleased with Cain's offering. But then jealousy occurs. And with that jealousy, we find that murder happens. And again, we're looking at disruption of shalom. Jealousy does not bring peace. Obviously, murder does not bring peace. So then we move from that to Noah. Now, the hard part I had with preparing this message was I was like, okay, Noah, let's see here. I hope they've got nothing to do all afternoon because I can talk all day. There's a lot of stuff in Noah. But let's look at the overview of Noah. This story could be a whole series by itself. The main theme of Noah is obedience. God asked Noah to do something that just plainly does not make sense to him. But he stays obedient to God, and through Noah's obedience, God gives us another chance. Just a little background. God comes to Noah. The world's a mess. I'm going to destroy it. I want you to build a boat. And I don't know if any of you, if you have not yet heard Bill Cosby's thing on Noah, YouTube it, check it out. It's hilarious because God's like, no, I want you to build me a boat. Right. This just wasn't a concept. And where he was at, where Noah was at, a boat. I mean, there's not a lake here, and especially for something that size. Now, wait a minute, you want me to have all these animals, that all these animals are going to come in? I don't get it. But you know something? Noah did it anyway. People came and mocked Noah, and he did it anyway. Noah was very obedient. Again, we're now finding, rather than a story of disruption of shalom, we're given an example of shalom. Noah following God's word. However, in typical self-centered human fashion, we find greater disruption of shalom. After the flood, and they start all over again, God tells Noah and his children to spread out and cover the land. At this point, we now find ourselves moving from, in the narrative of Genesis, moving from individual sin to communal sin. At this point, we're going to read Genesis 11, verses 1 through 9. So, again, somebody wants to shout out the page 8. Genesis 11, 1 through 9. And we're going to be talking about the Tower of Babel. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. And then they said, "Come, let us build a city, or build ourselves a city, with a tower that reaches the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city, and the tower that the people were building. The Lord said, "If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it's called Babel. Some people say Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. So now we know why there's different languages. The end, let's eat. No, there is a lot to this story. In this, we are seeing many examples of a group of people, a community going against God's will, causing some major disruption of shalom. To start with, in verse 3, they're making bricks in tar in order to make things easier and better for themselves, using it for their own power and fame instead of using it as a blessing for others. Technology isn't necessarily a bad thing if used for the right reason. We find it in the next verse that intention for this was purely personal gain. Let's stop there. I've got a bad example of a stone. The reason this is a bad example is because in actuality, this stone, if you could find a whole bunch of other stones like this, could make a decent wall.
That's a good example.
Exactly. It's a great example of a stone. Bad example for what I wanted to try to say. However, I mean, if you think taking a bunch of stones, and when I was younger, my parents built a house, and the joy of building the house is, as a teenager, I got to spend time. We had a retaining wall that we made that was, I think, 15 foot high, and we spent many days working on that. One of the things where I thank God was that what we used to build that retaining wall were all decent, stackable, to get things stacked on. It made things a lot easier. If we would have done it with regular stones, trying to make something like that, the amount of time it takes to try to get things to fit. You got to put in a whole bunch of cement, and then you got to let it settle, because you can't just continue to build. I mean, if you watch them build some of these places, I've seen them put walls like these up in less than a day, and they stand and they're there, and everything works great because everything is symmetrical and works good. So having technology for something like that is a good thing. However, you find that they're taking the technology here and they're using it for their own gain. Let's build a city. Let's build a tower. We don't want to be scattered. We want to stay here. Let's build this here. So in verse 4, we find them wanting to stay together, making a tower to reach the heavens, to make a name for themselves in order to not be scattered. Like I said, the ark lands, Noah's sons, and Noah and his family come out, and God says, scatter, multiply, be fruitful. So we're starting to scatter, and these people are saying, wait, we don't want to scatter. We want to just be all right here. We don't want to do what God says. We want to stay here. So let's build us. Let's build something for us. It's not like, hey, let's build a temple for God. No, they wanted to build something for themselves. And they wanted to do this in order to not be scattered. So let's, looking at this, I'm going to ask two questions. First of all, is technology good or bad, and why? Okay, technology is just a tool, it's how you use it. That's really a good answer. Okay, forget that. Okay, no more answers needed. Again, I'm going to just give you the microphone. But, yes.
And I love that answer. The technology has good. You use examples of, I can send out a group email very quickly. Where even 25 years ago, contact everybody here and it's a reminder from the potluck. It would have a phone tree or all sorts of phone calls. One email from you or me, boom, everybody has it.
Right.
But on the other hand, now we can sit here checking our emails, or our Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and maybe we're not doing what we should be.
Right. Technology, yeah. Technology can be a good thing, depending on how we're using it. In this particular case, we found them using technology because this is about us. We're going to make this for ourselves. You find this later in the Bible where some of the kings and some of the Roman leaders and stuff, and they're building shrines to themselves. They're doing things. Look, let's play me up. And in that case, no, technology isn't a good thing. I find some simple technology. I know people that have gone to Guatemala and built houses for people there that don't have homes. They use technology to make, it's just, you look at it, it's not much. It's basically 4 walls and a roof. But it's a home for these people. It's a good thing. They're using technology for a good thing. But again, the people here are making this to make a tower to reach the heavens. So what kind of towers do we see built to make names for ourselves? What are we seeing built? Where do we see people doing stuff to make names for themselves?
How about houses?
Houses is fantastic. Some of these people, I know some people that, I'm not saying you can't live in a house, I'm not saying you can't live in a nice house, but people that are building nice houses for themselves to show off and, hey, look where I live. I can't wait to get people here to see this. Yeah. Using technology, build yourself a tower. Where else? What else? Right. And something like that, again, I'm not saying that building towers like that is a bad thing if used for the right reason. Hey, there is a need for a hotel, there's a need for office building, yeah. But no, my name's on it, and it's all about me, and I'm going to promote this in every way possible, and look, it's me, that's mine, I built this. Then it's a tower. Where else? Where else have we taken technology and built towers? Advertising? Give me an example of what you think. There, you could go everywhere with this.
I just think about what I do for a living.
So you're building towers?
Yeah, I pretty much. And, I design grocery ads, but we have to make them appealing so that people come to that store instead of going to that store. So, what I do is I try to get people to look at them.
And that was the advertising. We advertise to make something look. That's all advertising does.
Yeah.
We use this and you're going to be better, you're going to be more popular, you're going to be smarter, you're not the advertising. You're tapping into the American way of teaching.
Right.
It's the one part about my job.
So there's all sorts of, and again, advertising's not a bad thing. Some of the products that Heidi's promoting aren't necessarily a bad thing. The way we go about it might.
Whole religions and ways of thought are constructed to keep us from having to obey God, listen to His commands, and refuse to have Him over us. So we'll go to great lengths to create a way that we don't have to do that.
Right. For those that didn't catch that, we've got, believe me, I need the fan going. It's not helping much, but it's helping enough. But there's whole religions and ways of thought that are more about themselves and just almost distractions from God and God's Word than helping other people. Yeah, politics, we could spend all day there.
I love what you said the other day, though, like, when we were talking, you said that the more you follow Jesus, the more you read your Bible, and everything like that, the farther away from it you follow God.
Oh yeah. And I just, that's my personal thing. Like Heidi was just saying, I had a conversation with somebody that I work with that is 18 years old, getting into politics and all that, but I told him, I used to be really big into politics. I was very political and followed everything and very much into it. I'm not saying I don't pay attention, but I found that, the more I follow Christ, and I find that, something, yes, there are hurting people, needy people out there. Yes, there are government programs out there, but what can I do? Do I have to worry about whether or not the government is creating all these programs for people? What am I doing? If I'm going to just sit back and be a cheerleader for somebody because of what they're doing and not actually getting dirty and getting into it myself, then I don't really think I'm following what Christ wants us to do. And again, let's go back to the disruption of shalom. I want to bring shalom into this. What am I doing? And we'll get in, and that actually gets into a few weeks from now, we're going to talk about systemic disruption of shalom, where systems get put into place to disrupt shalom. And that's really covers that real well. As I was doing my studies on this, I found a few scholars that said that the Tower in the Tower of Babel was not really a literal tower to reach heaven like some of us remember from Sunday school. I remember seeing pictures, you got this tower and it's going all the way up and you got the clouds down here, this tower way up here, we're going to get up into heaven. Again, I'm not saying that's wrong, right, or otherwise. I just heard and just thought this is kind of interesting. But again, some of the scholars saying that it wasn't a tower like that. Instead, they think it was meant to be, it was a tall tower. I'll give them that. Some suggested that it was even a temple reaching to the sky so that all may see and focus on the tower. In other words, focusing on something that was man-made, not God-inspired. And again, we've got a people that we don't want to scatter. We want to be here. We want to stay here. So let's make this tower so everybody can see and remember, hey, we don't want to be out of sight of this. We're here. And again, going against what God said. In verse 6, God says, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Again, we see how the communal disruption of shalom could escalate. And again, like I said, in a few weeks we're going to talk a little bit about the systemic disruption of shalom. But in this story was really focused on us. Focus on us. We want to be here. So we started Genesis with God creating everything, and what He created was good. It was shalom. We then see individuals wanting to be like God and thinking only of themselves and their gain, disrupting that shalom. We see self-centeredness. We see jealousy, deceit, blame, disobedience, even murder. When given another chance, we find ourselves back in those same shoes, only now making it about us as a group, putting ourselves above God and trying to make things about us and not Him. Disobeying God and trying to do it in a big way, almost to say, look at us and our defiance. So how can we as a community, not bring, or rephrase this, how can we as a community not bring disruption to shalom? And I guess actually better put, Catherine and I were emailing back and forth on this, and I guess the way she put it was, how can we promote shalom? How can we as a community promote shalom? Let's start right here with the MOSAIC community. How can we here, how can this group of people promote shalom?
Well, the main purpose for being here is to tell a community, among others, about the restoration we can have in Christ. And God makes it very clear that that is our message. Because He is reconciling all things to Himself, or restoring back to the way it should be. And through a changed heart, we affect our world.
Yes. 3 R's: restore, reconcile, renew. We find that throughout the Bible. And like what Neil was just saying, one of the big things is we can show and explain to others that need to see it, need to hear it. God's restoration, reconciliation, and renewal in each of our lives, but also in our community. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so focusing on family. And believe me, there's a lot of disruption in shalom when it comes to family. And I'm sure each one of us can think of some. As a matter of fact, Catherine's like praying for shalom in an upcoming family event. But yes, each one of us run into that. So how can we show the shalom and not be part of disruption of shalom in our families? And if we're not being disruption in shalom in our families, hopefully that can spread. And I mean, one of the big things is, hopefully, the love that you start showing others, that there's something I want part of that. And yeah, that's a great example. What else? How else can we promote shalom?
One of the, we see it all the time, discord, infighting among the church itself. We need to fight that every bit of ourselves and make sure we share the love and peace of Christ with each other. And then if we feel or if we see a hint of discord, gossip, we stop it right there.
That was one of the things Neil was saying, was talking about, the fighting within the church. Now, first of all, obviously, we need to want to keep that to a minimum within our community here. But one of the things that attracted me to Mosaic is one of the first questions, I got a fairly young church. Why would they start a new church in Fremont of all places? There are churches everywhere. Well, then I found out what the want, what the need is, what the desire to bring people that may have had struggles with church in the past. One of the first things that came to my mind that, we could have problems here. But you know something? I have not noticed that, and I love that about Mosaic. Is that rather than us sitting here and saying, you know something, we're better than church XYZ down the road because they do this and they believe that. Oh, and you're going to want to come here because that church over there, oh my word, you believe that they do this? We don't do that. Mosaic does not do that. That is one of the beautiful things that, you know something, God loves each and every one of us right where we're at no matter what. And if anything, sure, we may find some differences that we may have with other churches, but we're not going to point out those differences. What we're going to do is we're going to point out where, something they do have it right here. We're not perfect. I'll be honest. Let's all be honest that even Mosaic as a church is not perfect. But rather than pointing that stuff out, rather than pointing out the disruption of shalom, we're going to point out shalom. We're going to point out where, hey, this organization's got something beautiful going on where they're restoring shalom. We're going to point that out. We're going to bring that to the table.
I just want to point out, this is a good time to talk about it. One of our attitudes, if I talk to somebody and they're new or they're trying Mosaic, I don't care if they come to Mosaic. I care if they get in the church. I think we should all do that. If someone comes, we can ask them and we can welcome them, but our goal is to get them into the church. We've had people who have come for a couple weeks, got back into the church and then said, this isn't for me, it's somewhere else. So that's what we want to do. We want to go to church.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. And that's nice because some people will get hung up on something as simple as music. Oh, I don't really like the music here. Something that's great. I fully understand. Something, there's a church down the road that has your style of music. You might want to check them out. Let's not turn them away because, something. Yeah, you may not like our music, but we got better preaching than them. We do. Catherine and I are up here.
Just for example.
Yeah. But no, we're not here to disrupt shalom. We want to promote shalom. Anything else? I am finished with the message here. First of all, I want to point out, we've got the vase over to the side there.